I'll be your huckleberry.
You're not Daisy. You're not Daisy.
Welcome to Durbania. I'm Durbin.
I'm Laura.
And I've brought out the old Indiana Jones hat because we're going to read way too much into Tombstone as we have the Magnificent Seven with Denzel Washington and Chris Pratt just around the corner. Thought it'd be cool to go all cowboy western here. All right, cowboy.
He thought that.
It's the closest I got to a cowboy hat. Yeah. Anyway, so we're going to read way too much into Tombstone because honestly, it's both of our favorite movies, and probably as far as westerns go, it's my favorite.
I can't believe this movie is 23 years old. That just...
Yeah.
I mean, I know I didn't see it in theaters because I was only like 10 at the time that it came out, and my parents, not a chance. I saw it when I was older, but I always just loved this movie. Well, really, you know what? I just love Val Kilmer.
Val Kilmer was great.
I mean, if it wasn't for him, the movie would have been okay.
I think the movie still would have been great without Val Kilmer, but there's something about him and the way he does that.
Oh, I know.
I'll be your huckleberry. It's just, and he's sweating the whole way through, but just his character, it's amazing.
No, he plays, well, I can think he plays the role perfectly. I loved it.
Oh, yeah. So I think you're right. Tombstone's a great movie, but Val Kilmer being in that and playing that character just takes it to like level 10 Doc Holliday. Oh man, the little cup thing.
Yeah.
All Ringo's trying to get all cool with his guns and I'll be your huckleberry just goes with a mug. It's so great. Yes.
I agree.
Yes. So, reading way too much into this movie, there is quite a few good things. And as you're going through this movie, through its story, through its plot, through its lines, that you can just kind of pick apart and read into. Mm-hmm. One of the scenes that the last time we watched it through to, get prepared for this video and stuff like that, there was a line in particular that really stuck out to me. And it's when Doc Holliday, when he's like really sick at the end of the movie. All right, maybe feigning being really sick.
He was really sick.
Yeah, well, he was really sick, but I think he piled on a little extra.
Yeah.
So this is where he's bedridden, and so this is right when Wyatt Earp is about to go up against Ringo.
Yes.
Just mano a mano. So this is like the very end of the movie, and as Doc Holliday's bedridden, Wyatt Earp is talking to him, and he's saying, so what can I expect from this guy? Because Doc Holliday really is like the fastest gun in the West. I think there was no denial that when it came to the guns there, Doc Holliday was the best. But Ringo was like up there.
Yeah.
And so...
Well, and they weren't really sure, but
that's
Doc
true.
Holliday being who he was and knowing how skilled he was at his craft... he knew Wyatt Earp just wasn't fast enough to beat him.
And that's what Doc Holliday says to Wyatt Earp. And then Wyatt's like, well, help me understand the man as I'm going up against him. What drives this guy? And I thought that was really interesting that Wyatt Earp even asked that question. And then Doc Holliday's answer was like even more fascinating. Doc Holliday said it's because he's got a hole in him. And it's a hole in him that he cannot fill. So he kills and he kills and he kills. But it's still not filling that hole. So it's never enough. And to me, that was one of the most fascinating lines in the whole film because, like, isn't that true? Isn't that something that could drive any of us in our everyday lives? Not necessarily to kill, but drives us harder in our careers when maybe we need to be more at home, or drives us harder in one area or another because there's this hole where we're looking for that fulfillment, where we're looking for that completion, where we're looking to be special in somebody's eyes, whatever it is. Maybe there's that thing that's missing, and so we're driven to fill it through these other things, and then the more we accomplish those things, the more of a vacuum that hole becomes. And I just thought that was such an interesting concept, the way that Doc Holliday brought that up, because C.S. Lewis in his book The Great Divorce, I'm gonna butcher every bit of this quote, but that's okay.
You're paraphrasing, it's okay.
It's the Durbin paraphrase of a C.S. Lewis quote from his book The Great Divorce, but he was talking about that concept of having that hole inside, but he kind of worded it this way. He kind of worded it like, grace is like this massive thing, and it's just trying to get into our hearts. It's trying to get in there. It's trying to fill that void. But, we can shut that out, and we can keep it from getting in. But the interesting thing about that hole there is it's like this vacuum, and so it just keeps on closing, and so we just keep shutting in on ourselves. And C.S. Lewis talked about that and how, like, that soul then reaches a point where it shuts so in on itself that it can't even open up to receive grace, kind of the same way sound waves beat on a deaf eardrum. honestly, it's one of those really convicting lines. Now, I don't think that means you could commit one sin too many and then you're beyond God's love and you're beyond salvation. I don't believe that even for a second. But what I think that is really referring to is a state of the heart. Like, there's just this place in the heart where the heart's like, I don't want to receive it anymore. I want nothing to do with that. And anytime the heart wants grace, anytime the heart wants that love from God, it's there. So all it is just opening the door to receive it. So the picture in my mind is you have that hole, like a black hole, and it's just like this vacuum, and it sucks in and causes the soul to continue to shut up on itself. But then the moment you let grace in, it's this inflating force that just inflates. And okay, I'm over exaggerating now with the yeah, but you get the idea. It's just that thing that just fills up and builds up. And that's kind of the picture I got. And it was the picture that went through my mind instantaneously when he said that line. We could be so driven by that hole, but when we let the grace come into our hearts, it's that thing that fills and inflates. So then if we're driven to do things, we're driven for the right reasons rather than overdriven for the wrong reasons of trying to find, that fulfillment in other things.
Not bad.
Yeah.
So what I read way too much into it is actually earlier on in the movie when we're just learning who the Cowboys are, and they shoot up an entire wedding because
I was depressed watching that.
I know, Phil. I felt really bad for the.
It was
the
that
bride.
lady's wedding day. Did you see how she just threw herself on her husband after they shot him? Okay, I'm sorry.
did.
You should go on talking. I'm sorry.
I was watching it too.
It was depressing.
It was. They're walking over to eat and enjoy their wedding feast, and then all of a sudden, the priest is yelling, and it sounds like he's cursing him out, but since I don't speak Spanish, you don't know for sure. And then Ringo says and tells them what it says is basically he says, he's quoting the Bible, "Behold, the pale horse, the man who sat on him was death, and hell followed with him." So the man who sat on the pale horse is Wyatt Earp in this movie. And so basically they're kind of, I wouldn't say necessarily the brothers and Doc Holliday are the four horsemen, even though
they kind of foreshadow that a little bit, don't they?
They kind of foreshadow it a little bit, and then at the end you see the four of them walking together.
And then really it's just Wyatt Earp that goes and takes them all out.
Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday. I looked at it as, the pale horse in the Bible is the one that death follows. That is the end. And so these people who are living, in the Bible it says those who live by the sword die by the sword. And so the Cowboys, they're living by guns and they're dying by guns.
It's also kind of like that one verse that says God's not mocked, a man reaps what he sows.
Exactly.
So they kept reaping death and violence throughout their lives. So
and they
kept sowing it, and that's why he reaped it.
And they never had that moment where, like Ringo, like how you talked about the hole in his heart, he never got that hole filled in his heart. So he reaped what he sowed. And so I kind of, that's kind of like a little bit of what I read way too much into, just because, they even talk about the horsemen in the beginning, and so I just thought, well, why not?
Yeah,
It's
I know.
already in there.
It's really good foreshadowing the way they bring up that whole horse, but yeah, I just thought that was cool.
Well, and then at the end of the movie, in the credits, you just see the three brothers and Doc Holliday walking down the streets, and I'm like, it's four horsemen.
Yeah, it was kind of cool when we were trying to figure out which one was which horse. It was kind of cool. Then we kept forgetting which horse was which in the Bible. So,
but all I know is Doc Holliday is the best part of this movie.
Yes, Doc Holliday is awesome. And I think that's cool stuff that we read into it, where, from what you're saying, a man reaps what he sows. So these guys keep on sowing death. They're going to reap death, which I think also goes in with the hole in the heart. He kept trying to fill it through all that death, and in the end, all he got was death. Well,
yes,
really,
but it's never too late.
That's true.
Either.
Yes.
And don't get me wrong. We've all reaped and sowed terrible things in our life, but you can't let that stop you.
No,
because the thing is, if you get that hole in your heart filled, it's all erased. And you start from scratch.
And you let God's grace in, and now it becomes that very force that builds you up. And now you don't need to try to fill that hole, that vacuum, that void through.
Yeah, just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah. Well, if you saw Tombstone, what did you think of that movie? Make sure to let us know in the comments. Anything that you read into it, let us know that in the comments as well.
And what's your favorite Doc Holliday line?
There it is. What is your favorite Doc Holliday line? Let us know your favorite Doc Holliday line in the comments. Hit that subscribe button so you're on top of all the new videos coming out here on Durbania, like we're going to be doing a review on the Magnificent Seven. Probably wear my cowboy hat again, because I want to feel like a cowboy doing a western.
And we're hoping to have a special come out at that time, but...
Oh, yes. So...
all in due time.
Yes. Well, all in due time. Anyway, so hit that subscribe button. Be on top of all of that. I'm Durbin.
I'm Laura.
Thank you for checking out Durbania.